If we take a closer look in our feed section, we see that also the node edge appears in there as a hybrid component. The node edge exposes feeds based on selection. So if we make a selection of a node, for example, or of an edge, we see that different sources of feeds appear in there. The types of feeds you will see that will depend on the queries you have been using for your nodes and your edges. In this example, we have sources towards indices, elements, and parameters, but with other queries, you could have references to services or to views, for example, as well. The query rows is one which is always available, and we'll start off this example with using the query rows. If we drag the query rows into our dashboard and make it a sort of side panel, let's take the state visualization, for example, choose some nice layout options like this. If we now make a selection in our node edge, so selecting some nodes, we see that over here in that side panel, in that component, we see all the values for the row representing that node. So basically all the data from the result of our query is displayed over here. The same goes for the edges. So if we select an edge, we have all the row data from the query displayed over here. Next to the query rows, we can also use one of the more specific data sources that comes out of the selection in the node edge. Let's, for example, take the parameters. Let's clear the data source from this state component and use parameters instead. And then you can see that only the parameter columns are being displayed over here. We can change the layout to small again. And then we see we have a state component linked to parameters, but not just any parameters, only the parameters coming from the node edge selection. So whatever we select, we get the parameters nicely displayed, also with the alarm color in there as well. For parameters, we can also display trend chart, for example. So if we add a line chart to our dashboard and we also link it to the parameters, we also have the trend data available. So we of course have it for all the parameters, and not all the parameters have nice trend data, but for example here for the TX capacity used on this specific DCF connection, we can see a nice trend chart. In some cases we don't want to display all the parameters from the queries, but we want to display information for some specific parameters. How we can do that is by linking, instead of linking to all the parameters from the node edge, we can link to one specific protocol parameter, for example. So let's go to parameters. From the Nimra protocol, let's take a TX parameter from the interfaces table over here. So let's take the TX capacity used, for example, and use that in both the state and the trend component. That's not enough to display information. We need to link the element and the index still, and that's what we will gonna take from the node edge selection. So we'll take the element and indices feed and link that as a filter to both the trends and our state component. So let's make our state component a bit bigger over here. We can still take a nicer design for our trend chart like this, for example. And then I have linked to my node edge selection a detail panel with one parameter displayed over here, so the current value, and then below it we see the trend chart. If I make a different selection, So if I take another connection, for example, I have an updated value and also an updated trend chart. I can take still another one over here. They all have the same value for the X. Let's search for one which has a different value like the one over here. So we have the current value of the TX capacity of that specific connection, and below it we see a trend chart.